Hello and welcome again to the Quiet Life Podcast. I'm Pat Yates. Today's guest is Sean Duncan, and man, this was an unbelievable conversation. This guy has so many things between business, tax strategy, accounting, bookkeeping, consulting. He's with SMD Consulting and Accounting, LLC, but he has multiple businesses he ties into this. I think one of the biggest struggles at Quiet Life for a lot of our people is coming in with the right books, the right set of books that have the right things, and then tax that's going to come out of that. Planning what you do with that money when you exit your business is really a big part of what they do. This is a great conversation, and if you're thinking about bookkeeping and accounting, Sean is an incredibly actionable guy. I can't wait to talk to him about all these things, so let's get right to it. Sean, good morning. It's great to meet you. It's great to see you. I'm looking forward to talking to you. Welcome to Quiet Life Podcast.
Good morning to you, sir. I'm looking forward to it. I've heard lots of great things about you, bud.
That's great. Yeah, we're excited to have this discussion with you today. I think there's a lot of things that we can learn from you. Obviously, accountants are something people need. It's a little bit foreign to me, but you've got a lot of things that you cover. So give us an overview of SMD Consulting and Accounting, LLC. Tell us all the things you do.
So we are not your typical CPA firm, and that's on purpose. In fact, even in the name, it's SMD Consulting and Accounting. A lot of people can find accountants. There's lots of accountants, and they're amazing and talented. But what we've discovered over the years is clients need help. They need advice. They need strategy. They need planning. In fact, clients created the tagline of "We do what you wish your CPA would do." And that's the advice. It's business strategy, tax strategy, cash flow management. We folded in other services where we bring in wealth management, estate planning, and law through affiliations and other organizations, which we'll talk about more later if you're interested. But it centers around how do we help the successful business owner with strategy and do that in a subscription-based recurring model. So we're helping you as the year is going, as opposed to April comes around, you owe some money on taxes and you ask your CPA, how can I reduce that? Well, I can't go back and fix that. It's managing things as they go and giving them guidance. And that's, quite frankly, our unfair competitive advantage is we're giving advice as they go, and we're giving wealth management and building and estate planning stuff and business law. It's really wrapping our arms around everything a client needs that's a business owner.
That is amazing. You used the word, how did you call it? Your unseen...
Unfair competitive advantage.
That's interesting that a service is an unfair competitive advantage, something that most people could probably leverage, but you're doing a much better job of it. Tell us about that. So let's ask this. What's your perfect kind of client? Probably not starting out bookkeeping. It's more post bookkeeping, tax. Tell us who your perfect client is.
You know, it's actually the underserved segment. So people start businesses and we can help people with starting businesses. There's lots of questions about entities and taxes, but a lot of times they don't have a budget, right? We're trying to be very cognizant of cash flow, because if you don't make it the first year, you won't be a client for the next 10. Most of our clients, when we think about it, if we look at the household, so this is an important distinction. We help people with businesses, not businesses, because we're always centered on what are you trying to accomplish. The business is a tool for you to accomplish your goals. So a lot of times our clients have households that make between $250,000 and say $3, $4, $5 million bucks a year of take-home income. That's the small and micro business segment of the world. If you made 50 million bucks, there's consultants falling out of the sky. They're all over the place. In fact, there's a concept called the family office model. The family office model is for people with 50 million in assets and above, and there's amazing firms that help them. But what happens if you only have a few $1 million in your retirement account and you're only making $800,000? That's successful. But a lot of folks don't have the tax preparer, the lawyer, and the financial advisor collaborating. And that's what we're trying to solve for. So it's really about our perfect client. They make a certain amount of income because that's where we can get huge impact. I mean, if you're in a 37% bracket, everything we do is a little more powerful than if you're in a 15. But then they're trying to do something. They're goal oriented. We want to have them retire early. We want to have them put their kids through college, whatever their purpose is. We have niche that builds with this. We can say niche if you want to say we have niches or niches. We can be pinky up, pinky down, whatever helps you out with that.
Right.
The clients we end up crushing it with tend to be self-employed physicians, typically 3 or fewer owners in a practice, because when you get beyond that, there's different complexities. Software developers. We have done an amazing job with software developers, and particularly video game developers. I'm a big gamer, so I actually have an immediate rapport, and most of our crew does. So we get along with those folks as well. Folks that want to invest in real estate, and that actually tends to dovetail into it. We don't exclude other types of industries with certain exceptions. We don't help lawyers. We don't do nonprofits. We don't do international. So, but most of our client base is physicians, software developers, professional services. That's the vast majority of it. We have restaurants, manufacturing, and other things. That's who we tend to help. And then a lot of times they have a big transaction. I mean, how many times, and you know this well, how many times is somebody selling a business or buying a business, and yet their CPA doesn't advise on that deal in either version, or the lawyer is not collaborating on how they're going to draft the documents? That's where we really come in and sing as well. Even if it's just a one-off, we've helped a lot with that.
That makes a ton of sense. Now I was reviewing the site, and I know that you do, it shows like this is like the most basic level. It shows you have bookkeeping services, then you have tax planning, all these things. So you're like a one-stop shop for a lot of people. I guess the question that I would have for a lot of our people, let's say they're starting a business out there and they don't know where to turn, and maybe they don't have a huge budget, so they're afraid to have an accountant or a bookkeeper come in, and then that's kind of where they make mistakes. Is it sort of like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure type thing to start with you guys at the base and then let it expand, or is it they have to be at a certain level to come in and work with you?
It's a judgment call. It's actually a professional judgment call. And what we do is when we assess that, that's what we're looking at. If you are so early stage that you don't need QuickBooks, there are times when Excel is perfectly fine as doing your record keeping because you're so early stage. But I don't want to come in 3 years later and your books are a disaster, because I can't, if I have bad books, I can't even give you advice because I don't know what I'm basing it. So it is better to get early professional advice so that you don't have this multi-$1,000 cleanup, 10,000. I've got a quote right now. It's $25,000 to clean this person's books up because they've let it go. Messes are more expensive than just doing it right the first time. And this is true on so many levels. So it never hurts to ask. The beauty of it is, and this actually may tie to my securities license, I'm a fiduciary. Now we take our fiduciary responsibility very, very seriously, which means we're obligated to give you advice based on your best interest, not ours.
Right.
This may sound bad. I'm not hurting for referrals.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we're helping people and we're helping people grow their businesses and be successful. So I'm not going to talk you into anything that doesn't make sense. If it doesn't help you, I'm going to tell you it doesn't help you. That's the key is, so if you're early enough and I say we're too expensive, I'll tell you why and then what the next triggers are for when it's time to call us again. So I'd never encourage anybody to discourage anybody from talking to a professional. Just be aware that what are they trying to do? Are they trying to close a deal? Or are they trying to help me? That's a hard thing to gauge, but that's what we try to do.
You know, that makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people, you have a lot of people that have done exactly what you're talking about. I'll give a great example. I know a guy named Clay Copeland. I hope Clay's listening to the podcast right now. He had a business doing magnet fishing. You have any idea what magnet fishing is?
Oh, I've heard of it. I have never done it, but I've heard of it for sure. It's
I
not
had no clue. I'm like, how do you
fishing,
catch
right?
a fish with a magnet? There's no way that works. And so, of course, I had no idea what it was that you drop in and you pull up artifacts. A lot of times they find guns that are thrown off bridges, World War II stuff over in Europe.
Bicycles, all
I had no clue what it was. The guy came in, he gave me his books. They seemed trustworthy, but at the last minute, I said, something doesn't add up with your cost of goods sold. We spent 4 months with him rewinding that, and we sold the business for probably about $1 million more than he had thought he could sell it for. So in those examples, this is exactly what you're talking about, to start right instead of a garbage in, garbage out type of a approach, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And also it comes back to goals. Why did I say we help families that have businesses? If you're building a business to sell, we need to do things differently with the books. We need to give you different strategies. That's a different business model than building the business to create mailbox money. Prospect I just got off a meeting with just now, they want to acquire other companies. They're not worried about being bought out. They're going to keep doing this and they have no designs on selling. Well, that's changing what we're going to do in the books, the strategy, the investments, everything that we're doing, it changes. So knowing what you're trying to accomplish changes how that works. And so the sooner you get on that, the more runway we have to create the optimal strategy. Now, do we clean things up all the time and react? Of course. But in your example, if your guy's books are a mess and then he sells it next week, that immediately screws up the valuation. And I have a light background in valuation work, so I know how a lot of the discounting works, that I don't want to decrease your valuation by 25% just because we can't present reasonable financials. That's a big deal. So there's a lot of aspects, and running a business is tough, y'all. I mean, There's so many things we have to keep track of.
Yeah.
Managing your books should not be the priority of the owner. It should be delegated to somebody else that knows what they're doing, and you're focusing on the strategy component. The books are there to support you, not be the thing you spend your time on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people out there, like when entrepreneurs get busy, and I know I've been a solopreneur, I've had businesses that have multiple people, and inevitably they work on the day to day and say, you know what, I'll catch that accounting up later this month or next month or the third month or quarterly. And then they end up with this mess they hand you over. So it's one of those things that, I mean, you have looked at people probably that didn't do business with you, may have come back a year later and it was a mess, and other people that started right away that were in a better position. So is there a better time to come in and do this? I know we talked about the size of the business, but do you think is it consistent all the time, or is it picking it up quarterly, or how do you usually structure your customers on bookkeeping? Is it based on size?
It is based on size. And actually, I want to touch on one thing you said there is the catching up the books thing. Our profession has not done, and we're talking about bookkeeping, but I mean, we're talking about tax prep and advice and lots of other aspects of the accounting industry. I will say the tax preparers have done a real disservice as it relates to the books. Too often, the clients don't see the books having any value other than, look, I just need to get my tax return prepared. Well, then they hand it to the preparer. They get it close enough to get the return done, and then they move on with their lives. What too many business owners don't understand is, and I preach this when I'm teaching seminars and webinars and all the things that I do, the purpose of your financial statements is not for your accountant, not for your banker. It's not even for the investors if they're talking about selling or investing or whatever it is. It is for you to make management decisions. And if they're junk, you are making bad decisions. You're guessing. And we don't have to be fancy and get KPIs and stuff. So back to your question is, if a CPA is just focusing on getting a tax return done and they don't care about the books being financially useful, that holds you back. So when you want to come in is when you want to know what's going on so you can make better decisions. That's how soon it is. If you want to start from the get-go, it's like, I need good books because I have dreams and I want to accomplish, then let's do it right away at the start. I need to see if this thing takes off before I spend a bunch of time. I just need to sell a few things on Etsy. Excel will work just fine. It's a judgment call. And that's where we come in a lot of times to deciding. But sooner than later, at least to inquire of the value is the way to go. And the other trigger point is when you're too dang busy. When you say that I got to get around to it and I'm going to play catch up, immediately reach out to somebody. Because your time is worth so much more than just sitting there catching up the books, because that's hours and hours and hours you could be selling or spending with your family. The moment you fall behind is the moment to start saying it's time to hand it off to somebody, because I'm going to tell you, you're just going to keep procrastinating and it's going to get worse. And remember, it's more expensive to clean up a mess just to get it right going forward every single time.
I 100% agree with that. So when I was looking over it, you do accounting, but you also put consulting on there, because accounting inevitably leads to, how do I fix this? What do I do better? Where do I go? Obviously, you get a comprehensive approach. And I know you have a place where you do actual special projects. I was really impressed by that, because if people come in and do the bookkeeping and tax, you support them on audits if there are things and helping them minimize the tax. Tell us about the scope of things that you can do as far as consulting and accounting help with them.
It's pretty wide ranging. And a lot of times we tell clients, if you're not sure if we do it, ask anyways, because if we don't, I network. One of my other businesses is I do a lot of professional speaking, and I speak to the accounting community for the most part at this stage, and the medical community for the other. If I don't do it, dude, I know so many talented professionals across the nation that are specialists in their other niche. So just ask anyways. Now, the scope of work that we do, it starts with tax. The books are there, obviously, to give us the management report so we can make decisions. It often starts with tax, because quite frankly, if I can save you $50,000 in taxes, I've already more than paid for myself. And now I know we're free because we do a subscription-based business. So if we're doing subscription-based work and I saved you $50K and you're paying us $24K, congratulations, your books are free, your tax returns for free, and now all the rest of the advice is for free. That's pretty dang cool. So the advice, it's tax, it's cash flow, it's entities, it's transactions. Should I lease? Should I buy? Should I sell my business? Should I not? What am I worth? What would the tax implications be if I sell my business? And how do I restructure that? Can I minimize tax on this event? Can I 1031 exchange this building? What does that mean? And sometimes it's purely teaching. Again, probably use the prospect from this morning. They're a S corporation. They don't know why they're an S corporation. They've been an S corporation for years. Well, my CPA said I was supposed to. I just stopped and explained and quantified, this is why you do it. This is what you saved. And this is the pros and cons of this particular entity. Is this what you want to stay with? And he said, I've never had anybody actually just break this down and explain it. That makes so much sense. Thanks. Now I know what decision I can make. Sometimes it is stepping back and saying, wait, what are we assuming you know? One of my classes I teach is called the Pillars of Business Mastery, and it's really teaching clients about entities, the financial statements themselves, the 5 categories of taxes you're responsible for as a business. If you don't know those 3 things and how your business works, how can you make a decision that relates to your financials and your tax? The world assumes that you as a business owner understand your entity type, how the financials are read, and what taxes you're responsible for. If you don't, there's nothing wrong with you. It's not what you were trained in. How do we step back, make sure you know what you need to know as a business owner? Then we get back into the strategy. So a little bit of it's us professional judgment navigating that minefield. And there's more, but that's where it starts. Like I said, we do wealth management and other stuff as well.
Well, see, that's interesting, because as I looked at this at your site and reviewed all your information, I was really impressed by a lot of things. Number one, you work with a base size client that's going to help them get into a business or manage it. But let's say that everything goes great, they pay their taxes, business makes a lot of money, then they take it on personally, and they may have to go to someone else. But you actually have the ability to help them with wealth planning and things, insurance, things that they would need. It's like a full service operation to where you could take that money and get it real time back into some other things. Tell us how you try to work with clients on that. That's really exciting.
So we started this because, quite frankly, I got frustrated. I got frustrated that I would work with a client, we would save them $50, $100, $200,000 in taxes, whatever the number is. And then they'd say, what do I do with that, Sean? Well, talk to your investment guy. And they would go to their investment guy or gal, and they would do something that blew up my strategy. I'm going to give you something really simple. Hey, I think that we should set up a 401k in your business because of this. And the financial advisor in a separate company says, you know what, let's set up a SEP. Those are cheap. Well, that might mess up the payroll and related strategies I have in mind, but they don't communicate with us. The lawyer goes and sets up a C Corp when I wanted a partnership or whatever I decided I want to do. If they're not collaborating with us, they could be screwing up the business and tax strategies. They're not giving the wrong advice, but they're giving the wrong advice in consideration. They're giving good advice for legal or wealth for that little silo, but they're looking through a keyhole. They haven't opened the door to look at the entire room to figure out what the choice is. I got frustrated, so I said, to the heck with it. I am going to create my own dang team. And so we pulled that together. Licensing and everything being what it is technically an affiliation of entities. But again, I'm securities license and insurance license and a CPA, so I can handle and own portions of things. But we turned it into a quarterback situation where we will just lead the charge for you. We will make sure that we've got an idea and a strategy that considers tax and law with the legal team happening behind the scenes, so you don't have to go set the dang meeting. We then bring ideas to you at that point. And maybe you need to be part of the decision-making process, but we try to field that before you have to schedule the appointment. I mean, if you're a business owner, how many times have you had to wrangle all the parties that were related to it to get something done? And then you're paying by the hour for every single time somebody talks. And it just becomes this nuisance as opposed to advocates working on your behalf. I just got frustrated. It was a mess. Small business owners need the same resources the ultra wealthy get. Why can't they have that collaboration? And that comes back to the unfair competitive advantage.
It's really incredibly awesome. I mean, I think one thing that also struck me, you obviously are very big on your team because you say the difference is your team. Tell us about that philosophy, because a lot of people would think my services are what's going to make the difference from you. You lead with quality in your team.
Oh, yeah. They're much smarter than I am. I'm just some weirdo goofball that tells funny stories. So
I have a wife like that. She's been smarter late 80s, by the way.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes us longer to figure that out about our wives. And we're suddenly like, you know what, she is right. And once she's realized she's right, everything gets a whole lot easier. And if I'm not sure, I let her tell me how sure I am. I just keep it simple. No, we actually, in fact, I'm a big fan of EOS, Traction, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. I'm the visionary. I have an integrator. I have the operators. But the key to it is our core values. We hire people that really get the way we're trying to do things, and then I let them just go be awesome. We have to hire unique people. We hire purple unicorns. Not every single accountant out there is suited to go sit there and have consulting meetings with clients. And we've met us. We CPAs are not the most fascinating people in the world. A lot of us are not trained to talk to clients. Doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that's not their skill. We hire specifically for, you got to have the technical skill, but you've also got to be a communicator, a core value. You have to be able to do that. And by having those people that hit other core values, they've got to be problem solvers. They've got to embrace equality and inclusion. They've got to have all these different traits. It's them, the team is the reason we're successful. Do we set processes and consistency and training and automation? Of course, we're still a business. But they're the heartbeat of whether or not we help a client or not. And I would rather have fewer clients if I can't find the right employees to service it. I want to give that quality service that really helps, as opposed to just throwing bodies at it. We've been there. How many times have you gone somewhere and they just got a whole bunch of people, but only 2% of them know it? I think we call that the IRS. There's a bunch of people that are filling a position, but not actually bringing the service. That's what it has to start with. And we invest a lot of time.
I mean, that's really awesome. I think just like it's kind of funny when you were laughing about it. It's like accountants get the joke of being completely boring. I don't know where that ever started, but it's like, I guess maybe mundane numbers, people think that's the case. So here's one thing I really want to get into. A Quiet Light, obviously the biggest thing with us, we're a lot like you. We're very similar. There's a lot of M&A brokerages out there that, they want to get you in and sell. That's pretty much what they do. But I think Mark Doust, our founder, had put it really, really well. We judge ourselves by the quality of conversations and how much we can help people exit their business. It's not something they have to list with us. We want to be actionable for them to be able to improve the business they're going along. And that seems to be very similar to your philosophy of how you just help people along the way and you stay out of the way while they're able to make, better earnings. So tell me from a standpoint of M&A, let's say someone's coming in they're in their first year and they say, hey, I'm planning on 3 years from now, I want to be able to sell. Are there ways that you look at their business over that period of time and help them position to be there? May not be things you do now. It might be stuff they have to do 6 months, a year from now, but how do you approach that portion?
We want to know why. What are they shooting for? What is their goal? If they want to sell, but they need a certain dollar amount to retire, because it depends on the why. I want to sell this for $50 million. Your revenue's $600,000. Explain to me how we get there. It's not
I've met those people. I've had meetings with those people.
Actually, this afternoon, I'm meeting with a client that I'm helping him analyze the acquisition of a potential company. And the seller has revenue of $800,000 and has for roughly the last 3 years, and even during COVID. They had a dip in COVID and they came back. And they said in the next year, they're going to make 1.4 million. And by the end of 24 months, they're going to be at 1.8 million. Now, I don't know about you. Unless I have a clear roadmap, how in the world are you going to more than double your revenue in 24 months? Tell me how that's going to happen. Oh, we just believe our reputation is good. That's not a plan. That's just me throwing out a number because some broker wants to close a deal at a higher multiple. Well, that's the type of stuff. If I was advising the seller, we would have had a conversation about, are you going to achieve the 1.8? What do we need to do to get that? What do we do internally to put you on that path? How do we make the numbers show and tell that story that has an upward slope? And quite frankly, we can tinker with the numbers. You guys know, if somebody's buying a business, what are they going to go look at? The last 3 to 5 years of financials. And then what's somebody going to do? They're going to look at a trend line. They're going to see what the slope is. If I can tinker with that slope, I can show an upward trend of revenue. I can show an upward trend of net income. I'm increasing the selling price by 10, 20, 30, 50% by the actions I start today. So a lot of it's why, what are you trying to do? How do we communicate this message? We're building a plan. Simple things like procedure documents. Helping them build procedure documents can increase valuations 20 to 50%, depending on the type of procedures. The more transferable we make this company, we increase the valuation. So it's all about understanding What are we trying to achieve? And then what can we realistically pull off in that window of time?
Yeah, that's really amazing. So again, we're talking with Sean Duncan with SMD Consulting and Accounting LLC. I know you have other business. It's interesting because I clicked on one of your things on seminars because I was very, very curious. So not only are you doing accounting work and you're helping people tax plan, you're actually doing seminars to teach all this too. It's like super educational. Tell us a little bit about how that ties in.
So I've loved teaching. I have a heart of a teacher, which is why I'm a consultant. So consulting just pays more than teaching. So congratulations, I'm a consultant. I originally started teaching seminars to the business owners, and I still do that. Like I said, Pillars of Business Mastery course. I teach these different courses. Then I had accountants keep approaching me just randomly. I'd be walking through Scaling New Heights, and somebody run over to me and say, "Oh my God, 3 years ago, you changed my life." Well, I didn't speak 3 years ago. We had lunch and I gave him tips and advice. And quite frankly, it just kept happening. And was talking with a friend of mine and I started discussing, Sean, how did you come to the decision to turn down the FBI and start, to go and start your own firm? Sean, how did you make a decision to fire your tax returns to focus on advisory? Sean, every time I have these big decisions, I have a process. And she pointed out, you realize you have a repeatable process. That process is actually the Chief Proactive Advisor Program. It's the process I teach people for change management, largely focused on moving to advisory work. There are not enough of us out there. So 2 years ago, I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and formalize the stuff that I kind of just been shooting from the hip, chatting with people over lunch and whatnot. And so I formalized that process into the 6 steps of the masterclass. And then said, hey, if anybody wants me to speak at this, I'd be happy to teach on it. Next thing you know, I'm speaking at AICPA Engage and then QuickBooks Connect and scaling and various different conferences. I'm working with Canopy, different things. And this is actually ironic. So depending on when this podcast comes out, but just this morning, Canopy released their top 10 influencers for 2024. I'm on there, which blows my mind, because we're talking about like Doug Sleater and Amy Vetter and Jody Padar, legitimate, Jason Stats, legitimate influencers. So for the last 2 years, all I've been trying to do is let me see how many accountants I can help, because every accountant I help move into advisory services, I'm helping hundreds of business owners. That's my pay it forward legacy. If I can teach the accountants to fish, they can teach their clients to fish, because I cannot land every client. And it honestly took off a life of its own. I wasn't expecting it to be a thing. I mean, I got published last year on, writing a chapter of a book. Just fun little stuff that really starts with the heart of how can I help more accountants be advisors? Now, I do webinars, I do conferences, I do workshops. I fly out to accounting firms and work with their leadership team sometimes to go over the masterclass and program, because so many accountants are stuck. Yeah, that's fine. I'm supposed to do advisory. What the heck is advisory anyways? And how do I make the transition? Because this is the firm I have.
Yeah.
That's what I help with. I've done it. I've coached people to do it. And so it truly was one of those, I just thought I'd help a few folks out. And next thing you know, dang it, I'm traveling to a dozen different events and doing webinars. And like I said, it just took, and literally this morning blew my mind that I was included in that top 10 influencers list.
I disagree with that, because just having spent a little bit of time with you, I can tell not only are you educated in what you sell, sort of quote unquote sell and teach, you, like you said, you're actionable from a teaching standpoint, which really resonates with me, because my mother was a principal. I talk about this every once in a while. My mother was a principal and teacher. My wife was a teacher. She retired and started a business. And I think that I always try to lead with education. I was, my business I own, my ecom business was on Shark Tank. I've done about every license you can imagine. I've had everything that you could imagine from retail to ecom that I've done before. And I feel like a lot of times I can really add value in ways wide, that I should do way more consulting. I do a ton of free consulting in Quiet obviously, working with people in their businesses. But I think that it's so important to be able to add that value. And it seems as if you lead with that value, correct?
Absolutely. Now, I will say, and this is something that's really important for me, and maybe this is just wedging it in there. There's infinite number of opportunities to help, but we always have to come back to your why. If you go look at my LinkedIn, my first 2 things is husband and dad. That's my job. Husband and dad first. Those are my jobs. Everything else comes after that. And so one of the challenges is you go do advice. We can help people all the time.
Yeah.
But we sometimes are the cobbler without the shoes. We forget to help ourselves. And so one of my big missions is, as this honestly took off like a rocket, I had to pause and say, well, wait a second. Why am I doing this? Just like I say, why are we trying to sell a business, or why are you starting this company? I want to be present and successful with my family and also do all these cool things to help other people out. And so that has, once I got that centered, a lot of other things just clicked correctly in place. But yeah, it starts with helping, but it starts with helping not at my own detriment. I have to actually take my own medicine. And I'll give you a funny example. So I'm not speaking at AICPA Engage and Scaling New Heights this year, which I hate because I love those two events. I standing in front of a room of 400 people and watching them scribble feverishly because you gave them a tip that you know is going to help. I love that. I'm fulfilled. My cup is filled. But I'm not going this year because, well, I'm going to spend a month in Egypt and Greece with my family instead. And my wife said, we can move our vacation. It's cool. No, my purpose is husband and dad. That's it. I want to help other people, but not at the sacrifice. And this is what happens in our profession. How many of us are pulling 14-hour days right now? Because, well, that's what I got to do. It's what I signed up for. Look, y'all, we're not saving anyone's lives. Getting those tax returns done. The only people that know that you work till 2 a.m. are your kids and your spouse. Stop and think about what you're trying to do here. And that's why advisory services is so powerful, is it can start pulling you back into your own life and getting a better balance. Sorry, I went a little soapbox there.
No, I mean, it's really amazing. So it's like we're extremely aligned. I have 3 sons, married long time. Doing all those things are really, really important. And they all tie into what you do as an actual individual anyway. So it's like a means to an end. I think what you're talking about is exactly the way that I would end up approaching it. I mean, we're the same way at Quiet Light. We try to add more value than we do in a sale. And the funny thing about you, the more that I've listened to this, you may spend money to do the services you have, but at the end, you're probably going to save way more than you ever spent. It's a value proposition in many ways.
Yes. In fact, actually, I have a saying that I often point out. Nothing on your P&L should ever be an expense. Everything should be an investment. If you're spending money on something or someone,
that's a good point.
What are you getting from it? And the ROI could be joy. Like, I don't know if everyone's watching this on video instead of just audio. I have a Captain America shield and a Thor hammer on my wall. SMD purchased those. Now, what's the ROI of Captain America shield? I think it's hilarious and fun. That's it. That's the joy. I can't quantify a tax state. Well, I can't quantify the tax savings, but sometimes joy is the reason. But too many people don't hire their accountant. They don't hire the CPA. They don't hire a broker that understands a deal because they're too expensive. Are they? Yeah. What's the return on that investment? So I had a doctor fire us for consulting. We saved him $90,000 last year. And he's like, yeah, but I can't justify this $900 a month consulting fee. We quantified and pointed at the $90,000 we saved that he had missed the previous year as money he saved and put in his pocket. Yeah, but you're just too expensive. That's a scarcity mindset.
Sense to some people.
Yeah, it's a scarcity mindset that we can't always beat. So if you are a business owner, stop and think, am I being cheap or am I being prudent? And that's it. There's a distinction there. You cannot spend money because it's not a good ROI, or you're just being cheap because it sounds expensive. Expensive. We've all heard it. Nothing's expensive when there's value and so on. There's various versions of that. But everything should be.
That's really cool. So again, we're with Sean Duncan with SMD Consulting and Accounting. Sean, we've covered a lot of things. I feel like we could talk for a couple of hours. I really think we're very aligned, and some of the things that you have are just amazing. I think our clients at Quiet Light should reach out to you and try to make sure that their accounting is up to date and caught up. We have vendor partners that we do. This is just an awesome system. So I know we didn't cover everything. Are there things that you'd like to tell the audience about at SMD that we didn't touch on?
Well, I will point out for anybody that mentions Quiet Light or knows Quiet Light, we do a 1-hour no charge intro meeting. So if you want to come in and just bounce ideas around, maybe you have a technical question you want me to try to answer to the best of my ability, but really it's let's get to know each other, answer some questions, and then we'll tell you what next steps would look like if you're interested. And if not, no harm, no foul. So one thing is, look, it doesn't hurt to reach out to the professional when now I'm not going to get charged for, because I would rather talk with you and then tell you not yet, call us in 6 months. Or heaven forbid, oh my gosh, you got a disaster, please let me fix this. It can take different flavors and different shapes. The key
That's
for
really
what-
amazing. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
we
we do the same thing. And just to touch on that, we try to get people to come in and just let us do evaluation, see where you are, get a baseline. Even if you list with someone else, you need the right information. So that's what you're talking about, correct?
Absolutely. And what we've actually found is there's amazing and wonderful CPAs out there. And I'm not saying anything bad about them. The freaking amazing talent that's out there. But maybe you need somebody that's proactive. Maybe you need somebody that pulls multiple things under one roof. We work with people that have other preparers. We come in only as the consultant because they love their preparer. That's fine too. There's nothing wrong with it. But understanding your choice is always the key, making sure you're making the right decision. We're not the fit for everyone. If you have a giant nonprofit and that is your entire business, I am not your guy. But you know what? I know somebody that is. I know this girl that is amazing compliance and bookkeeping and tax prep. That's who I'd put you in touch with. That's just because it's not our specialty. We do what we do and we do it really, really well. That's what we focus on. And so sometimes I can't even anticipate the questions, but it's fun to have those meetings and people ask the question. We try our best to give advice. But really, if you're a business owner, your take-home income is sub 3 million. By the way, we have clients that make 10, 20, and 50 million bucks a year. So we help outliers. Our sweet spot is $500,000 to $3-ish million bucks in revenue, typically service-based professionals, and we have a unique niche in medical practitioners and software developers. And the last little thing I'd point out is that one of the most common mistakes we see that closes deals for us all the time is somebody says, oh, I'm just a 1099 contractor. I'm sorry, I'm just a 1099 employee is the words they use. There is no such thing as a 1099 employee. If you receive a 1099, you are a business owner. That immediately changes everything. ER doc making $500,000 a year is not an employee. They're a business owner, and immediately I can do more tax strategies for you than I could for the W-2. If you're a 1099 and you're making 6 figures or more, you should immediately be just looking at, should I have an entity? Should I have an accountant? And am I missing tax deductions? Good grief, call someone. It does not have to be us. Call someone. I am seeing so many messes and tens of thousands of dollars that could have been saved just because of that one dinky little thing. Bad bookkeeping and no tax planning. And they just didn't understand how the rules work. So if you want a little low-hanging fruit, that's one to call a CPA for sure.
I actually know someone that's going to need that advice, and I'm going to put them with you for sure. That's really amazing because all this stuff is proactive advice. It's like so actionable and so good to have. I mean, you guys do an amazing job over there. So Sean, tell everyone how they can get in touch with you if they want to reach out.
Sure. So we have the website. It is SMD, as in Sean Michael Duncan, accounting.com. That's the easiest way to do it. You can email info@smdaccounting.com, or you can check me out on Facebook, LinkedIn, and all that stuff. That's another way to grab it. If all else fails, there's a phone number, 469-252-4547, but that's also on the website. That's the easiest way. And if you want to reach out to me directly in Facebook or LinkedIn, I'm happy to answer there too.
And as you said, if they mention the Quiet Life podcast, you can do a 1-hour consultation with them. So it's like a free roll to find out how to help your business, right?
100%.
So yeah, listeners out there, if you're thinking about accounting or bookkeeping or tax planning or anything, Sean can give you some advice, even if it's something actionable that you can do on the end. Sean, this has been really amazing, man. I really appreciate you joining the Quiet Life podcast today, buddy.
It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you taking the time. I really enjoyed it.
All right, buddy. Have a good day.
Thanks.